welcome to NAPOD, where we provide NA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us to be self-supporting by visiting napod.xyz, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 in the virtual basket. If you're also in AA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, Sobercast. Sobercast features AA speakers and workshops in the same format as NAPOD. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for Sobercast, that's 2 words, on any podcast player app, or go to Sobercast.com. Enjoy the podcast, and thanks for listening.
My name's Amy. I'm an addict. It's going to take me a while to get used to this. You know, a lot's changed in my life, and I'm no longer the kind of person that, wants to, be loud and flashy and, have all the attention on me, so talking in a microphone is not conducive to that. But what I can say is that, this topic is my truth. You know, I got clean when I was young, and, what that means is that I started getting loaded when I was young. And I feel like I'm just going to share my experience with you because, that, my story is that topic. You know, what I can say is that from a very young age, as far back as I can remember, I just knew that there was something wrong with me. I can't remember any time where, I felt just completely, genuinely content and comfortable in my skin. From, from being, this tall, I remember going through my life, and I couldn't put words on this at the time, obviously, but, having done work and having really, examined my behavior and my patterns, I was just uncomfortable all the time. I was in fear all the time. I was insecure all the time. And then there were these situations that happened that confirmed the fact that who I was just wrong and what I was just wrong. But I just remember being really little, and, I would go to the grocery store with my mom, and, I don't really look like either one of my parents is, because I'm mixed, and, I remember going to the grocery store, and I would look for things that I would want her to buy me, just so that I could say mom loudly, so the people on the aisle would know that I was with her. And, I don't know where that came from. Nobody told me, hey, you don't look like your parents. No one told me, hey, you don't look like you fit the part of where you are right now. But I just remember just feeling in my being, I needed to let people know that, she was my mother, because they wouldn't know. And then there were just consistently things like that. And, and I just remember feeling like I just wanted anybody's body but mine. I didn't feel black enough, I didn't feel white enough, I didn't feel funny enough, I didn't feel smart enough or athletic enough, or whatever it was that I did, I just felt like who I was just wasn't good enough, and I just was never going to measure up. And I remember being in kindergarten, and there was this, we would play this game where it's the boys would chase the girls and try and kiss you, right? And I remember being in kindergarten thinking, those boys aren't chasing me, they're chasing my little blonde friend, so fake it. Stay near her so that people won't know that they're not chasing you. I don't know where that came from, but I just, again, from a very young age, just little stuff where I just knew that people didn't want me, and I wanted to just be anybody else. And so what I learned from that age is that I could get out of anything if I pretended that I was sick. And so Amy played sick all the time, because I was much more content sitting on the sidelines of life and watching you all play and interact and play games and stuff than participate. Because if I participated, you would know that I wasn't good enough and I didn't fit in. And if I was sick, then I would just do my best to just hide out. Really, I just didn't want people to notice me, because I was just so uncomfortable. So. As I grew up, more situations happened that confirmed those feelings that I have, of inadequacy and just feeling less than and feeling different. And, I moved from Concord to San Ramon, which is a less culturally diverse area. And, I remember walking into school and being made fun of because my hair was different. And just again, just not fitting in, trying to play the part of whatever it was I thought I was supposed to be or do or how I was supposed to act. And I just never felt like I was capable. And so when I started using, I felt like I could breathe. I got high and I felt relief for the first time of that feeling of because I wanted to be anybody else, and I would get loaded and I could be anybody else. I didn't feel like me. I didn't act like me. It didn't matter if I looked like me. Like, none of that stuff mattered, and I finally found relief from that feeling of having to be Amy every day, all day long. And I loved that. Like, nothing mattered other than finding ways and means to get more. And I loved the feeling of like nothing mattered at all. And like, as a result of nothing else mattering, like, consequences started to come up. And I ended up, like, what I can say about like the end of my using is that I abandoned myself on a very regular basis to change the way that I felt with drugs and other things. I used to self-mutilate. Like, for me, what I know is that, like, I am an addict. And so what that means is that I have an obsessive compulsive disorder. And for me personally, what that looks like is like self-destruction in every way possible. And like, drugs were one way that I found to just harm myself and to escape my feelings. If it meant cutting, I did it. If it meant overeating, I did it. If it meant not eating, I did it. Like, there were all of these ways. If it meant interacting with people where I felt dirty and disgusting, I did it. Because my disease is about, how can Amy hurt herself today? And sometimes it's a conscious thought and sometimes it's not. But without like actively participating in some sort of program of recovery, I am looking for ways to just self-sabotage and be self-destructive and to just cause harm, really. And like, if it affects you, sorry. And like, that was just how that I went about my life every day. So I ended up hitting my bottom when I was 17 years old. I was a senior in high school. I was at a party. It was New Year's going into 2002, and I was at a hotel party with all of my closest friends, and I, like I say this a lot, like, I hated everybody there. Like, I was with like my core group of girls and like whatever guys were around, and I just remember being in that room just like hating everything about everybody, because at that point I was just so disgusted with myself, and and ended up some stuff happened, and I remember kind of coming to at one point and just having this thought where I'm like, I'm so tired of feeling this way. Like, that feeling in like the core of my being that just was painful and gut-wrenching all the time just continued to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember having this thought that like, maybe it's the drugs. Because like, by that point I wasn't going to be graduating high school. I'd actually abstained for a couple months because there was a boy, and the boy was straight edge. And I'm like, yeah, I'm straight edge. And it didn't last very long, but like, I was for a few months. And like, in that time, like, things kind of got better, and I got accepted to go to college, and I gave that up to get loaded. And so like, all of this stuff around me was very evident that like, what I was doing wasn't working. Like, I had already been hospitalized for ODing and like self-mutilation when I was 14 years old. Like, there were all of these things that were like, okay, Amy, like, what you're doing is obviously just not working for you. And so I remember having this thought where I'm like, maybe it's the drugs that's causing all of these problems. Like, I remember just having this feeling where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. I just don't want to use, like, I'm never going to use again. And I swear to God, the very next thought was that I had a party planned for a month from then because my parents were going to be out of town. I think it was like a 3-day weekend or something. And so I was never going to use again except for this party I was going to have at my house. And I used for that entire month period because I didn't know how not to. Like, at that time, what I did is I got loaded. And, I remember during that month period, I was high, and I remember having this thought go through my head that I didn't really want to stop using. But if I wanted to stop, there was no way I was going to be able to do it on my own. And I continued to get loaded after I had that thought, and then I ended up having the party at my house, and my mom found out, and I remember she came and she knocked on my door because she had like gone through the garbage and found something, and she's like, "What's going on with you?" Because like, she knew that there was something wrong with me. She knew that there was something going on with her daughter. She just had no idea what it was, and so she's like, "What's going on with you?" And I remember having this thought that so just like to kind of explain like the relationship at that time that I had with my mom is I was horrible to her. My mom was the one person that I knew that no matter what I did, she was never going to abandon me. Like, she did her best to like set healthy boundaries, and like, she went to Al-Anon, and she like did her best to interact with me in a way that wasn't harmful for her, but like, I manipulated her hardcore. I would say things to her that were just so horrendous because I knew that it would hurt her, and then I could leave the house and like not feel bad, or like not leaving without her telling me like, no, I couldn't. Like, I would just do stuff to just get away. And I was just really awful to her. And so I remember she was like, what's going on with you, and like so she's in Al-Anon, she works the steps, like she's very knowledgeable about people that are addicts for somebody that isn't one. And I remember thinking that if I told her I had a drug problem, she would like be really happy that I like had honestly communicated with her and that like we were having some sort of rapport. And so I'm like I think I have a drug problem, and she she totally freaked out, and like for good reason. And she ended up putting me in rehab, like 3 days later, and like that was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I remember manipulating and like doing my best to kind of maneuver my way around, and like I was able to I talked her into letting me go to an outpatient program, but I still had to go to this treatment center. And so I ended up going in, like I said, it was 3 days later, and it was this adolescent program in Walnut Creek. And I remember walking in there, and like I walked in the middle of a group, and there was this girl that was screaming and crying and cussing at one of the counselors. I remember just looking around the room, and I'm like, these people are seriously messed up. Like, that girl has some sort of drug problem. She should really get that checked out. Like, I'm really glad that she's here. And I like looked around, I looked for all these reasons why I'm like, God, like that girl, she's crazy. Like, and I'm like, that guy, like staying away from him because I don't know what he's doing. But I like walked in and I just judged everybody for everything I could possibly find. And like luckily, like I wanted to fit in and I wanted to be a part of, and the people that reached out to me were going to meetings. And so I started going to meetings, and we went to all sorts of different 12-step fellowships, and I found my home in NA. But we would go to meetings, and I'd like sit in meetings, and I'm like, wow, I'm like, y'all, like you people are really messed up. I'm really glad that you're here. Like that guy, like glad he's off the streets because now I'm safer as a person. And I'm like judged everybody. And like what I can say about getting clean young is that like the reality is that like my story was different than a lot of people's in the room. I didn't have a house to lose. I didn't have a car to lose. I didn't have a job to lose. I didn't have kids to lose. I didn't use dope for 40 years. Like, I had never been to prison. I had never been arrested. There were all of these reasons for me to find to be like, cool, I'm not like you, and I don't have to do what you do. And then, it's just, the funny thing is that my entire life I wanted to fit in and I wanted to be a part of, and I finally found my home, and I'm like, oh, no, thank you. I don't really want to be here. I don't want to really be like you people. And what I can say is that, like, my attitude of you people got me loaded. It got me loaded. I would come to meetings and I heard cliches. And like the beautiful thing about Narcotics Anonymous is that even me being as judgmental and as closed off as I was, the message was carried to me. I remember sitting in meetings and I heard cliches, and I heard like, we'll love you till you can learn to love yourself. I'm like, cool, right on, good for you. Like work the steps, get a sponsor, go to 90 meetings in 90 days, all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, like you should probably go to 90 meetings in 90 days because you have a drug problem. I'm like, yeah, like I'll get a sponsor so that way you won't ask me who my sponsor is. And like, I never actually talked to her on the phone. And I remember like the steps would be hanging on the wall, and I'm like, I already do homework. I didn't actually do homework at the time, but I felt like I did homework in high school, so I'm not going to do these steps because I don't want to write. And I heard things like don't get into a relationship in your first year, and I'm like 17-year-old, not an addict. That definitely doesn't apply to me. And so I remember I was at a meeting in Dublin, and I was sitting in this meeting, and it was a candlelight meeting, and the door opens, and this guy walks in late, and I'm like, wow, who is this guy? And he like came in, and he like was hugging everybody, and he knew everyone there, and he like shared, and he was like quoting the basic text, and like there was a convention coming up, and he like knew about the convention, and he like had all this stuff, right? And I'm like, wow, who is this guy? And so I have like 30 days clean, and I get into a relationship with this guy who I thought was like Mr. NA. And like what I can say about the language of NA is that like we pick it up quickly as newcomers. And like it's really about like applying it and like how am I actually staying clean today, not showing you how I think I'm supposed to stay clean today. But so I start dating this guy, and I find out that he actually has less clean time than me but had relapsed and didn't tell anybody yet. And I'm like, oh, it's fine, baby, don't worry, it's okay. And I'm like, it was just really sick, because like I was completely incapable of doing anything healthy at that point. I had no idea who I was. I didn't even think that I was an addict. So I was just wandering in the rooms completely lost. And then I like picked up a partner. And so we just wandered lost together, And like some stuff went on, like, because again, like neither one of us were capable of doing anything healthy or loving for others at that time. And so some drama happened, and and I ended up relapsing with him and another person that were going to meetings because I wasn't doing anything different. I would come to meetings, like that was the one thing that I did. I think I had a coffee commitment at the time. But I mean, probably 70% of the time, I would come to a meeting and get dropped off because I couldn't drive yet, and I would like go out in front and I'd smoke cigarettes and talk shit about all of you guys that were talking recovery, and I got high, like I got loaded by my my choosing to do that and to separate myself got me loaded. What I can say about that relapse is it only lasted for one night, and at the time I remember being resentful about that. But like what I can say is that what I had to come to realize and like accept with as my truth is that non-addicts normally don't come to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. And so if I'm in this room, there's probably a reason that I'm here. And that when I live in my will, when I try and do things my way, I get high. Like that is my truth. And so I started doing things differently, because it scared me a little bit. I like started taking it seriously. I realized like, oh, maybe I am an addict. Maybe I should sit in the meeting when it starts and stay till it's over. Like, maybe I shouldn't like whisper to my friend and like get up 7 times just because I want to and I don't think this is important. Like this is about life or death for me, and I didn't realize that when I first got here. And so I ended up breaking up with the boyfriend because some other stuff happened, and I remember sitting in meetings and the people that were talking and that like seemed like they didn't hate themselves as much as I hated myself were talking about working steps. They were talking about having a sponsor. They were talking about being of service, and so I started to do that. I ended up getting a sponsor that I actually talk to on a regular basis. I started working the steps, and like things started to get better. Like just that little bit of work that I was doing, things started to get better. I remember walking around. I think I actually was walking up to a meeting, and there was like there was a reflection on the window, and I remember looking over, and I was smiling, and I'm like, oh my God. Like not a whole lot of outside stuff was changing, but my perspective on the outside stuff started to change. Like that feeling in my body where I was just uncomfortable and gross all the time was still there, but not quite as intense. My urge to like fight everybody was still there, but not quite as intense. The hatred that I had and the like judgment and the despair that I felt all the time was there, but not quite as intense. And I just started to kind of like feel better and feel lighter. And and so like I said, I was working my steps, and I just finished a 3rd step. I was about to start my 4th, and I remember copying resentment towards my sponsor. I don't remember why. I think I decided that she wasn't available enough or something. So I was like, I'm mad at my sponsor, getting a new sponsor, or you're fired. And so I fired my sponsor, and like at that very same time, the boyfriend that I was with, who was getting loaded for these last like several months that I had been staying clean, he started getting clean again. And so me being the brilliant addict that I am, with like I think like 8 or 9 months clean, I get back in a relationship with the same guy again, who now has like 30 days, maybe. And like what I can say about that entire situation is that I no longer have the ability to question whether I'm an addict or not. And that like, I have a friend that says this a lot, that good news is that the drugs aren't the problem, the bad news is that the drugs aren't the problem. By the time I ended the relationship that time, did I just celebrate 3 years? I don't know, I had like 2 or 3 years, maybe 2.5 years clean. And like my bottom in that relationship, what that looked like was me having self-mutilated again, like completely broken in every way possible. Because like having gotten clean really young, I did a lot of things that like the older members did, but I was already in NA. And I didn't have like drugs to be like, oh, well, at least I was in my active addiction with drugs. Because like my life was disgusting and demoralizing, and like I lived that lifestyle that a lot of us live when we're using clean, like coming to meetings and not sharing about it, and like not being honest, and not working steps, and not having a sponsor, and hating myself all the time. I remember I would like avoid the phone calls from my mom because I was tired of telling her how great my life was when I just hated everything again. And like there was no excuse of like, well, I'm high, or like, oh, I'm using right now. Like it was all me and my decision and my obsession with anything that changes the way that I feel. And he did that. And like I didn't feel good, but I felt different, and so I stayed. And yeah, I mean it was like I couldn't hold a job. I had anxiety really bad. I lived in people's garages, on couches. It was just like dirty, and so when I finally ended it, I did the one thing that worked for me before, was like I got a sponsor and I started working the steps. What I can say is that like the fellowship of NA carried me through that time. I mean, I slept, like, I had a friend at the time, and, like, I called her, and I slept on her couch for 3 days before I ended up moving back in with my parents. And I mean, really, like, it was, like, the women in the fellowship that literally held my hand and, like, helped me get my stuff from our apartment and, like, leave and, like, helped me walk through the stuff that, like, I felt so incapable of doing. I felt so incapable of doing it. Because, again, like, I was just such a shell of a person. I had given away all of my truth. I'd once again abandoned myself on a very daily basis, because he was my drug, and, like, he got me high, you know, and yeah, and so after all of that, like I said, I got a sponsor, and I started to work the steps again, and like, what I can say is that I believe in the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. This is a 12-step fellowship. We work the 12 steps. That's what we do here. My experience is that I can be here. I mean, abstinence, I have to have abstinence if I want any sort of recovery. But if I'm not working the steps, I know where I can go. I can once again be wishing that I didn't wake up that morning, disgusted with myself and my life and my behaviors. Like, I can do that. I can choose to do that at any moment when I'm not working the steps, even if I am working the steps, but it's a lot less likely. And so I work the steps, you know, like, the freedom that I have found in the steps is difficult to put into words. Like, really, all I can say is, like, I hope that you work the steps, because then you will know. You'll know. You'll know what it's about. Like, the freedom that I have found is just absolutely phenomenal. You know, I walked through life, and, like, every interaction that I had with everybody, every decision that I made was based in absolute fear. Like, every decision I made was like, we're afraid, so we're going to act accordingly. It was never like, oh, I want to do this, so I'm going to try it. Oh, I like him, so I'm going to be with him. Oh, I'm going to, you know, like, oh, I'm smart, I should go to school. Like, I never made decisions on anything that actually felt genuine and true for me, because I had no idea what that was, and I believed that it just was never going to happen for me. And so it was like, oh, I'm afraid, so I'm just going to sit here. Or like, oh, I'm not capable, so I'm not going to actually try. Or whatever. Like, everything that I did was, like, fear-based. My goggles were just like, we're afraid, we're incapable, so just don't try anything because you're going to fail. And then you failing is going to mean something about who you are as a person. And so, like, that was just what my life looked like. And like, my process with the steps has drastically changed that. My life today is really full, like, really, really full. Where I'm like, you know, people, like, say that their plate is full. I feel like I went to a buffet and I, like, grabbed a big tray and I, like, piled all the stuff on it. But what I can say is that, like, my life is full of decisions that I have made. It's not full of mistakes. It's not full of reactions. It's full of, like, I'm going to get all the information, I'm going to make a decision, and then I'm going to act accordingly and, like, do the footwork to reach a goal or to be present or whatever it is. And my life is full of really beautiful, satisfying things today, you know? I'm a student. I actually just moved to Oakland for school. And, you know, and it's funny because, like, as much as I'm just still very much an addict. And, like, as much as I believe in my capability and then I've done all the step work and I, like, know that I'm, like, a capable person today, like, I was at school for a week and a half and I literally was having an emotional breakdown, like, called my mom crying where I'm like, please tell me I can drop out of school. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm like, they let me in by mistake. Everyone here is really smart. And I was, like, so overwhelmed and, like, so just judging myself hardcore. And, like, the beautiful thing about NA is that I've learned that I show up anyways, and that I'm now capable of walking through my fears. And so I would go to class, and I, like, wouldn't really talk because I didn't even know what they were talking about. I would just take as many notes as I could and, like, go to my room and do my reading. And like, what I can say is that, like, every class that I'm in right now, like, I am fully capable of participating in. And, like, that shift has happened where I, like, panic and my disease tells me that I can't do anything. And I'm like, you know, I hear you, but I'm going to not act on that. And then I go through my life, and then it gets better. You know, and, like, that being said, like, with my life being really full, I also am very, very clear on the fact that if NA doesn't come first, I will get high. Like, my support group that I got clean with is not here anymore. There's one person that I know of that's clean. I don't know that he goes to meetings. There's one person that I think might be clean, and I know for a fact that she hasn't been in meetings in years. And everybody else, I don't know where they are. I either know that they're high, I know that they've died, or I don't know. And like in the 8 years that I've been here, I have lost a lot of people, and like not just to death. You know, I think that addicts in general, but like me sharing as a young person in recovery, it is very, I don't know if it's true that it's easy, but what I see a lot is that we come in here, like I literally grew up here, right? Like I was 17, I was clueless and thought I knew everything. So I came in and I literally grew up as a person into a woman, right? And so what I've learned is how to show up for my life and how to make these decisions and have a life that I want to participate in. So I get really busy. And I think that what I see a lot is that people get clean and get these really beautiful, full, amazing lives, and then they bounce. And like what I need to see is how do you get here, stay clean, have a beautiful, full, amazing life, and show us how to do that. Stay here for the newcomer and show them how to do that. I would have been lost for way longer if I didn't have people love me and show me that, like, hi, I have years clean, and guess what? I'm in a meeting in the front, so shut up and sit down. Like, I needed people to show me how to do this because I had no idea. Like, again, my way hurts myself and others. My way gets me high. My way could very possibly get you high. You know what I mean? Like, my will is not pretty at all when I'm just being completely self-seeking. And so as much as my life is really full right now, like I show up when I'm asked, and I participate fully in my recovery. And like part of me participating in my recovery is showing up for my life. Like me working a good program sometimes means I don't go to a meeting so I can, go celebrate the holidays with my family, which I was incapable of doing, or like going and seeing my dad on his birthday, like doing those kinds of things because I am now capable of showing up for people. And it isn't always about me. I mean, it's about me a lot, but like not as much as it used to be. And I pretend that it is. And so like I get to just do this. Like I have a friend who said it really well, that she's like, NA is the bridge that brings me to life, right? So like I came here and I didn't know anything. And so I sat in meetings and I listened, and then I sat in meetings and I talked, and then I went and did step work, and then I like sat in meetings and got a commitment. And then I sat in meetings, and then I like sat in more meetings, and like in doing all of that, like I worked the steps and I be of service, and through the process of the steps, I found a higher power that I am comfortable communicating with, and I get to just live this life that I want to live today, and like I say this a lot too, but like my life today is worth fighting for. So I wake up every day, I choose Narcotics Anonymous, and I fight for my life. Because before I got here, I mean, I was just pathetic. I was sad and angry and just pathetic, and like that is not at all my reality today. And I just want to touch on real quick. I was talking about my relationship with my mom before I got clean, and I woke up this morning at like 7:45 or so, and I like looked at my phone, and there was 7 missed calls from my mom, and she had texted me, and she's like, Amy, she's like, I need you. I'm going to Kaiser. I'm having abdominal pain. She's like, please call me, please come. And so I'm like, yeah. Like I call her, I'm like, hi, like where are you? I'm on my way, and I like show up, and and it's a trip because like my mom and I have mended our relationship in like a really profound way. And so it's not that I take it for granted, but like we both just show up for each other very regularly. And so I don't always acknowledge like just how amazingly different it is. Where like of all people for my mom to call, like her husband was there, but like my mom called me because she like needed me to go be there and hold her hand because she was scared. And like she could have called her best friend, she could have called my older sister. Like there's all these other people that she could have called, but like she wanted me to be there, and I got to like hold her hand while she was uncomfortable. And like that is like I feel like in a very general sense, like that sums up what NA has done for me. That like I am 100% completely different than the girl that I was when I got here. I didn't care about anybody. I didn't care about anything. And I was like, again, like all about just causing harm. And like today I get to show up for people and I get to like share my love with people. I'm capable of loving people and like allowing people to love me. And like that is just really different. And like it's also just been a really long process, you know? And like again, I believe in the steps. Like everything good in my life today is the result of me working the 12 steps. Like everything good in my life. And everything bad in my life, the awareness comes from me working the steps and I get to work on it. You know, like everything in my life is a result of me living the Narcotics Anonymous program. So yeah, like again, as a young person, like it's just really good to be clean. Really, like I remember when I got clean, I thought that the actual thought that went through my head was that I'm gonna live with my parents forever and I'm gonna sit on their couch every weekend and that's gonna be my life. Like I really couldn't imagine anything other than like sitting with my parents on a Friday night, bored. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I had no idea what I was gonna do. And like the complete opposite has been true. I have traveled more and I do a lot. And like it was really important for me to see that I could have fun when I was young. Because again, like I didn't want to be bored. If I was just bored and alone, I may have gotten loaded again. But like there's always stuff going on. And like I laugh more than I thought was like humanly possible. And it's really good. And like that being said, like again, this is really about life or death for me. Like people die all the time. Young people and older people, like addicts die from this. Without ever knowing that they could have been here today. Like people will be dead. People that knew that they could be here today will be dead. You know, people that are in this room today, you know, I mean, chances are like somebody won't make it. And like I don't know what combination of things it is that I do that's let me stay here for the last 8 and several months clean. Like I don't know what exactly it is, so I do my best to just do all of it. Because I don't know, like, what if it is the meeting attendance? What if it is the step work? What if it is the higher power? If I let one of those go, I'm like I could get off balance. Like I don't really know exactly what it is, so I make time for everything. Because like I want this to be my way of life. Like this isn't just, I say everything a lot, but like this isn't just an event that's happened for me. Like I didn't come to NA and I'm like, cool, like, oh, it's like a party, or it's like I went to a museum or I went and did something. It's like some activity. Like this is a way of life that I choose. And I know people that like choose to not have this way of life, and I don't want what they have. So I come here and I show up and I like share the stuff that doesn't sound pretty. And like I get honest even when it's uncomfortable. I get honest and share my experience even when it is pretty, even when it does sound great, because like I again need to see that like we can come here and like be productive members of society. You know, that thought of first thought wrong, that's still in many cases true, but like my truth is that in a lot of situations that's not true. Like I have had a profound change in my thinking, and there are situations where my first thought isn't harming somebody, isn't lying and like being manipulative. Like that's not always true for me anymore, because I have found because I'm in recovery, because I'm in a process where I better myself to the best of my ability every day. And like that's a gift. Like I have been able to see progress in my life. And I also want to just touch on real quickly that like as a young person, especially when I was like 17, 18, like I remember I would hear a lot of like, oh my God, you're so young, I'm so glad that you got clean here, like I wish that I could have, and I would hear all of this stuff which I hear and is totally valid, but what I can say as a young person is that I need to see the people that got high or that used for years and years and years that are here and it didn't work for you. Like I need to be able to know that if I had tried for 30 more years, I would be here anyways. Like I need to see that, because my head can be like, well, good, now I know that you guys are here. I'll take a meeting schedule. I'll be back in 20 if it doesn't work. Like I don't want to do that. Because it's very easy for my head to tell me that like it was just a phase. That I was when I got clean I was 17 and it was a phase that I was in, and everybody that was my age was doing what I was doing, which isn't true, but like my head will tell me that. And I again can look for reasons to separate myself and to distance myself from what my truth is. And my truth is that I am an addict, and so if I choose to get loaded, my best case scenario is that I'm back here with you guys again. Best case. Like what I'm promised in active addiction is jails, institutions, dereliction, and death. And the promise of Narcotics Anonymous is freedom from active addiction. It says that an addict, any addict, Any addict, like regardless of anything, any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. So again, like if I get high, I'm lucky if I get a new clean date. I'm lucky if I get that. So there is no reason for me to go anywhere. If I'm going to be back here with you anyways, I might as well kick it and like be here for the duration. And so I choose to stay. Thanks.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please help us improve our ranking so others can find us by putting a review on Stitcher, iTunes, or your favorite podcast index. Nawpod is ad-free thanks to the folks supporting the show with $1 or more per month. If you enjoy listening, you can join them by going to nawpod.xyz and looking for the donate link. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.